Councillors and gallery, can I please have your attention, please? I welcome you all here to this meeting of the Cardinia Shire Council and declare the meeting open. Please note that this meeting is being webcast live over the internet on the Council's website. It's good to see so many people here present this evening. I do request that you be respectful while you're in with us tonight. I will not tolerate any interruptions or interjections by the gallery. It's just simply showing mutual respect for one another. Councillors and staff will be available after the meeting, if required, for any members of the gallery who wish to discuss any of the items tonight. I'll ask Councillor Ross, will he do the prayer tonight, please?
Almighty God, we humbly request that you bestow your blessings upon this council, direct and prosper our deliberations to the advancement of your glory and to the betterment of the peoples of Cardinia Shire. Amen.
Amen. The Cardinia Shire Council respectfully acknowledges that we're on the traditional land of the Bunurong and the Wurundjeri people and pay our respects to the elders past, present and future. I also note we've received an apology from Councillor Jodie Owen for this evening's meeting. Minutes of previous meeting. Can I have a notice of motion, please, to adopt the minutes as listed? Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Jeff Springfield. Can I have a seconder, thanks? Councillor Wilmot. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. Declarations of interests. Councillors have any declarations for this evening's meeting? Ordinary business. The Council conducts its meetings accordingly to a consent agenda. Councillors have advised of the matters for consideration this evening that they wish to discuss or debate. The remaining items will be adopted without discussion. The items withdrawn for discussion this evening are item 4, lease of 21 Stringy Bark Circuit, SJD Community Housing Project, withdrawn by Councillor Michael Schilling. Councillor Schilling.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move the recommendation that Council proceed with the lease of the property 21 Stringy Bark Circuit, Pakenham, and the principal terms of lease to be 50 years, commencement date pending certificate of occupancy with the rent being nominal, and that Council partner with the Victorian Homelessness Fund and SJD Homes in the construction of a family home, and that we execute the development agreement with the Victorian Homeless Foundation on key terms set out in the report once the final form of the agreement has been agreed to by all parties, and that we also finally authorise the Chief Executive Officer to effect the lease of the land and execute all documentation associated with the lease and development agreement.
Thank you, Councillor Schilling. Can I have a seconder for item 4? Councillor Wilmot. Back to you, Councillor Schilling.
Thank you, Mayor. I moved this original recommendation back during the October Council meeting, pending an exhibition period, that Council proceed with this lease at 21 Stringy Bark Circuit in Pakenham, which is in the Lakeside Estate, and partner with SJD Homes and the Victorian Homelessness Fund to construct a home targeted at women and their children, and particularly those who have been made homeless by family violence. During this exhibition period, there were no submissions. Furthermore, I'm proposing tonight that we authorise the CEO to effect the lease on the land and execute all the documents required to get this project underway. Just to refresh people's minds, and for people who are not familiar with this project, Council will be leasing this particular block of land for a period of 50 years, whereby SJD would build a dwelling. At this point in time, it will be a 3 to 4 bedroom dwelling, and engage with local traders to donate materials and donate time to build this property. The Victorian Homeless Fund would seek funds through community corporate donations for the provision of labour and some of the administration expenses which come about from such a development. Council would ultimately have no responsibility in terms of maintaining the property, building or tenant management. This would all be undertaken by the Victorian Homelessness Fund. Now, this particular fund, who will be funding the project, were established in 1987 and are a charitable organisation, and their sole purpose is working in the area of homelessness. Since their inception, they have housed approximately 300 people and have donated $9 million worth of housing stock to the local community. They've recently completed a project in Carrum Downs, and they've also currently undertaking a similar project to what we would see in Stringy Bark in Ashwood. I would like to thank SJD Homes, which are a local builder in the Cardinia Shire. Their offices are just a short distance from here, for their ongoing commitment to social responsibility across the Shire for not only this project, but we would also, people also probably aware of the carbon neutral home which they have recently put on display. This piece of land does have a little bit of history. In 2004 it was transferred to council as part of an open space contribution, and in August 2017 the land was considered access to council's needs. I mean, if you see this block of land, it is literally a residential housing block, so there's very little that we can do in terms of open space with this block, and we will see within a short distance from this block there is ample open space for the community to utilise. This project, I believe, is in a great location. You can walk to a school, you can walk to the train station. It's a close distance to fresh food, open recreation, multidisciplinary medical services, which we all know are the building blocks to promoting healthy living in the community. I'll leave it there and give my seconder some time to talk, and anyone else, but I'd welcome anyone's contribution to this important discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Shilling. Seconder to speak, Councillor Wilmot. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Shilling, for withdrawing this item. It's a really good news item, I think, to have a partnership project like this with one of our local businesses, and I believe he's the business of the year this year. But to have their involvement and their input, and then the involvement of the Victorian Homeless Fund as well to raise the extra costs, I think this is a really good project that we're working on, and it's a great one that all of the community can be involved in, though there will be a fundraising element of this, and anybody, large donations, small, whatever, everybody can contribute. So as Councillor Shilling said, it is for families, and particularly families that are finding themselves in a situation of potential homelessness as a result of family violence. And as we've done a couple of these housing developments now, we understand through the work that we've done with our livability health plan that this is a critical area, and the Together We Can project also outlines the need and the need to develop more of this housing and the gaps that we currently have in social or community housing within our Shire. So I'm happy to support this. I think it's a great project. I'd also like to thank SJD Homes. I think they're a good company, and it's lovely to see a company like this putting back into the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilmot. Any other speakers? Councillor Ross.
Just to take everyone on a little bit of a journey, back in a couple of years ago, Council had a report that came that spoke about the desperate need of housing in our community, and it voted back to the fact that we had in the southern region of the Victorian councils that many young people who were being exposed to domestic violence or family violence. Out of that, the back end came the fact that we needed to do something, and the Royal Commission into Family Violence had in it that one of the processes you need to have in place is the fact that people need housing. If they're going to leave somewhere, they need somewhere to go. One of the foundations of a decent society, and one of the pillars of our society, is that people have a right to live somewhere in some sort of housing. We've had rough sleepers here in Pakenham, where people, some councillors have noticed they live in cars. There's other people, through whatever circumstance, they just, whether it be employment, family situations, or things just out of their control, have made their life really tough. I know that in the past there's a lot of people who like to hear we would like to do something to help people with housing. I'm extremely proud to know that as a council we are someone who stood up at that time and said we need to do something better about this. We need to look at the assets that we have, which are the community's assets, and see if we can provide something that costs people no more than the assets that we have. So council went about looking for what we could do in this space. And it just so happened that our Cardinia livability plan, the Together We Can program, and the Cardinia housing policy all came together, which supported council doing something in this space. So we looked for any areas in council that we might be able to have some land or do something with that could turn into social housing. It was really important. And for anyone who knows SJD Homes, they're one of the local businesses. As it was mentioned, they are Business of the Year in Cardinia Shire. They do some amazing advanced work in the housing sector, particularly in the affordable housing sector. And the goodwill that they want to give back to the community is very similar to Khan's Food Group, who gives so much back to the community in relation to when they run events. They put back in, and SJD Homes is exactly the same. They want to put back in as well. They're happy to coordinate the building of the house and to get other people locally involved in the program. So I think this is really a no-brainer that council, okay, we're not going to fix the whole problem, but we're going to be part of the solution, and our residents know that we are serious. So I think it was really unique too that the state government came along and heard about this project as well, and they actually gave some support towards them when Lily D'Ambrosio came along and heard about this as well. So anyway, I think we'll wait to see how this goes along. I'm sure it will be an outstanding project. Anything that SJD Homes has to do with turns out to be a really quality asset to our society. And more importantly, it will give those who are less fortunate than ourselves a place to go and live in a decent home in our local area. So I hope my fellow councillors will support this motion and support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Any other speakers for or against? Councillor Ryan.
Thank you. Through you, the Mayor. I'm in support of this motion of Councillor Shilling. I was lucky enough to meet the people at SJD, it's a mouthful, isn't it, SJD Homes, with their opening, and just the quality of the homes that they do build and their caring mechanism that they put into action. I was quite impressed by it. I think we need to really think about too that none of us ever know if we're ever going to be in this situation, and I'm glad to be part of a community and a council that is willing to put their hand up and show the community that we really do care about our people in the community and helping them when they're down on their luck. So I'm definitely in support of this motion. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. Any other speakers? I'll go to the mover to sum up now, Councillor Shilling.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to the other councillors that contributed, Councillor Wilmot, Councillor Ross and Councillor Ryan for your comments. And 100%, my conclusion was just going to talk a little bit about our livability standards and how this hasn't come out of nowhere. This has been years of hard work from our council staff, not only localised data but statewide data that says that this is a massive hole and a massive gap in our community in terms of affordable housing, and the fact that over the last 12 months in the housing market there are very few rentals that come on the market that are affordable for people with the lowest incomes in the community. So at the end of the day, where does that put them? And I guess as a level of government, we have a responsibility to our residents to do what we can to support them and to break that cycle. However that may be, for this particular case, it is for victims of family violence. But look, there's a whole heap of things that we can be doing. And looking into the future, I'm sure there's other mechanisms that we can look at around social housing, around new developments, and perhaps quotas for developers in providing lots allocated for a social housing cause. But these are all things that we can look into in the future. But thank you very much, and look, I do ask for people's support for this tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Shilling. Councillors, we signify in the normal manner. Are we for? For? Against? Carried. Thank you. Item 5. Sale of land, Cumberland Drive, withdrawn by Councillor Letitia Wilmot. Councillor Wilmot.
Thank you, Mayor. I move the recommendation as listed in the report, and I'll speak to that if I get a seconder. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilmot. Can I have a seconder, please, for this item? Councillor Schilling. Back to you, Councillor Wilmot.
Thank you, Mayor. As listed in the recommendation, this is a report that for us to recognise and address the submissions that we received after giving public notice that we were intending to sell this land or develop this land. The land currently has a reserve zoning over it, and as part of that we have to remove that zoning to be able to develop the land. So public notice was given back in September and submissions were called for. We received 15 submissions, and they raised concerns which are fairly typical of these sorts of developments. Concerns with traffic congestion, decrease in land value, loss of open public space, an increase in crime. And those submissions have now been addressed. I do note that the original report that came to us in August was that there would be a panel to hear any submissions that were received. And whilst there were 15 individual submissions, none of them were requesting to speak to their submissions, so no panel was actually needed to hear those submissions. And I acknowledge that the residents are concerned, but at this stage we haven't actually decided what sort of housing project this will be. We will now start the process of talking to different housing associations to work out which one is best suited for this location, to get a feel for what sort of projects. It does say in the background of the report that it was identified as being suitable for disability housing, and that may well be the case, but we have to go through the process of talking to a number of different housing associations to see which one is the best fit for not just us, but for them and for the community that they will be looking after and caring for. So this is really still just in the beginning stages. Yes, we've removed the status of the reserve, but we still have to go through the whole process of establishing a partnership with the housing association before we take that next step. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilmot. Second to speak, Councillor Schilling.
Thank you, Mayor. And look, I'll be supporting this. This is, as Councillor Wilmot said, this is a very early stage in this report, in this process. We have the block of land on Cumberland Drive, which is next to quite significant open space, being IYU Reserve. It's close to a public transport route, it's close to a shopping centre, it's close to a primary school. Once again, a good location to provide some supportive housing of a type which hasn't been determined yet. But look, as it was suggested, housing for people with disabilities would be one great option for that piece of land. And at the end of the day, these blocks of land are about providing, these projects are about providing people with dignity and respect that we all deserve. The dignity and respect to have a roof over their head, which is a very basic human rights issue. And look, I'll be supporting this going out to an expression of interest, and I look forward to hearing back from the relevant housing associations to see what we do get back for this block of land. I would like to acknowledge the objections once again. And look, Councillor Wilmot did outline some of the themes, and there have been some officers have responded to some of these concerns, and we were all set up to have a Central Ward panel on this particular item, but unfortunately the one person, we couldn't get in contact with them, so that didn't go ahead. But look, I'll be supporting this recommendation tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Schilling. Well spoken. Any other speakers on this item? Councillor Owen. Councillor Brett Owen.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, councillors. I support the motion. I think this clearly identifies again that council is committed to assisting with the housing crisis that we have in our Shire, and it clearly sort of highlights that other governments are lacking in this space. And council was aware of surplus government land in Pakenham, and I'm hoping through council's advocacy, when we when the government goes through these processes of disposing this land or selling this vacant land, that they are serious in helping the housing crisis that we have. Cardinia is committed to assisting. Other governments need to step up. So we'll continue to advocate in that space. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I won't go over all of that I did before about the importance of people stepping in to do something about the social housing need that is in the community. Needless to say that in our council plans on housing and also to do with the Together We Can project, that does highlight those things. I think this is an exceedingly important area that we're targeting here in the disability area of accommodation and looking for area for support staff to be accommodated on the same site with them potentially. For anyone who, and I don't know many people who are disabled, but the few that I do know share with me the limited housing stock that is available to them, and the fact that the rental market really doesn't accommodate very much towards people with disabilities. So for us to target this, I think it's really important to know that our Access and Inclusion Committee don't just try and upgrade facilities, but they support things like this, bringing housing to our community as well. I think for those people who do know people with disability, often know that if they can't get the correct housing, they finish up in homes or old people's homes, things like that, where they really don't want to live. They're people who want their independence and they want to live a respectful life in the community and blend into the community. And what this will do, if we can get the right people to tender and put in an expression of interest, will bring that dignity to these people, and they will have houses or units built that will serve to their needs and give them the independence they require so they can continue to feel dignified and be part of our community. So I endorse this, and I hope my fellow councillors will as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Any other speakers? I'll go back to the mover, Councillor Wilmot, to sum up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to my colleagues that spoke in support of this recommendation tonight. I don't think there's any further need for me to go into anything here. I look forward to the next phase and working through the partnership arrangement with the appropriate housing association, and I look forward to seeing what that project ends up like in hopefully not too distant future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilmot. Councillors, now it's time to vote on this item. All those in favour? Carried. Item 6, amendment to meeting procedure local law. Councillor Letitia Wilmot, to you.
Thank you again, Mayor. Tonight I'd like to propose an amended motion that this matter be deferred for further consideration by Council in the new year.
Thank you, Councillor Wilmot. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Ross. Back to you, Councillor Wilmot.
Thank you. In the lead up to this meeting, and perhaps as a bit of background, this came before us as councillors back in September, and it was because of the discrepancy that currently exists between what we're actually doing in the meetings, which is not allowing supplementary questions because of the risk component to the person asking the questions, and that they may put themselves in a dangerous position, and what was currently in our local laws. So we need to realign them in whichever way, whether that be to permanently stop supplementary questions or to find a different way of doing that. The report before us tonight gives some recommendations, but in the lead up to tonight's report, I did a lot of investigation and I compared what 10 different councils from across Victoria do, and it comes as a bit of a surprise that there's a lot of councils out there that do not allow subsequent questions at all. But there's councillors in this room that would like to continue that practice. So we need to do some more developing of this. We need to investigate whether we heighten up our wording around different things, whether we clearly state what will and won't be allowed in the actual process of submitting the questions, whether there should be a one-page document that outlines to the person putting in a question what will and won't be allowed. So all sorts of different things. I've had a conversation with Mr Evans, our Manager of Governance, about this, and he agrees that there's some different things that we could potentially try, and that we need to have a broader conversation coming back in the new year. So that's what this amended motion is recommending that we do. We have that conversation next year. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Wilmot. Councillor Ross to speak, seconder.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. In seconding this motion to defer, it is a very interesting conversation that we all have, coming from different angles on transparency, and also too looking at protecting council and the residents and ratepayers' money. In looking into it, as I had with as Councillor Wilmot did, when I first became mayor, and it was made aware to me that we were going to have live feed, and it was going to be literally live feed. No drop out, no 7 seconds, no dump buttons. People weren't going to be restricted at all in what they said on the camera. I went to visit one of the councils who do this the best, Moonee Valley Council. They have 3 staff who sit there, a production person who has it on delay and controls the whole situation. They have a lawyer who sits there on a dump button to make sure that no one gets slandered or defamed at the same meeting. And then thirdly, they have another person who looks at the news feed that comes back on the questions and statements that people make to determine whether or not they're able to be injected into the conversation online. It's really interesting here. Since I've been on council, before I got on council, I can remember the mayor of the day, when people would ask questions, the answer sometimes was, I'll take that on notice. Never got back to, ever. Next month, the same person had come along with a similar question. I'll take that on notice. Never got back to. I know that since I've been on council, we not only allow people to ask questions and questions and questions. Sometimes people have got questions with 5 supplements to the question. We never restrict them. I've never heard them ever get knocked back on the amount of questions they ask. Even if they ask the same question 6 months in a row in different forms, we still answer the questions. I must say, we always give it in writing too, so the person gets it in writing, a response. As well, they get to meet the staff member who made the answer to the question as well. And then more often than not, people come in and spend a couple of hours sitting down with the manager. I don't know any council who gives them that much access and open transparency to this. But unfortunately, in one of the first meetings that I chaired live, we had someone who came along who wasn't a regular person who asked questions. Not only did they ask questions, mostly supplementary questions, are statements about the answer they're being given. And the person proceeded in naming the people who were doing the thing that they weren't happy about, and saying that they felt that they were of a criminal nature, and basically it all went on live feed, at which point it was made aware that there could be some recrimination for this, because we're the live broadcasters as council. I must say, for the person, I would have hated to think that that person would have gone back to their house and copped a walloping off the people who just happened to be known by police anyway about what they'd said about them. And then secondly, I didn't want ratepayers' money going because we were inept on not putting the precautions in place. So this is a really important thing. I believe that we are extremely transparent and open, the past 3 councils I've been on. And we're going to have a discussion around how we can actually monitor this and continue to be in that phase and give people the same opportunity. So anyway, I support this deferment for further conversation. I thank Councillor Wilmot for going and looking into some other councils on what they do as well, and coming back and sharing with us about the differences. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Any other speakers? Councillor Schilling.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, I support this motion to defer this item until the new year. I personally, and I've made it clear to council all along, I do support supplementary questions. Once again, this is one of the benefits of a democracy and being all individuals, is that we can all have our opinions and have our discussions. The reason though why I'm happy to support the deferral is because I don't think we've got the right mechanism yet to deal with the supplementary questions. I completely understand the risk to council, and having a live feed going along with the supplementary question. Of course, we were all there on that night, and we all knew straight away what had happened. Look, I personally don't see the situation as being all that difficult to solve. I see it as a matter of turning down the volume button while the person asks a supplementary question or something along those lines. But I'm really interested to continue this discussion with councillors to find the best way. But look, I'm aware that not many councils do supplementary questions, but look, I'm a big believer in a lot of ways. In Cardinia, we do lead the way with a lot of our community engagement strategies and what we do, and I'm happy to be the council that's a little bit different and the one that's happy to support those supplementary questions. I do agree that I think they have to be tightened up quite a lot. There were meetings where we're having free-flowing conversations from the gallery and we're here for 3 hours. I mean, it's got to add value to the question, and I'm more than happy to investigate ways that we can have the best of both worlds and mitigate risk to council along that same time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Schilling. Well points. Good points. Any other speakers? I'll go back to the mover, Councillor Letitia Wilmot.
Thank you, Mayor. Nothing further.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillors assigned to vote on this particular item. All those in favour? Carried. Item 8, Contract 18/33, Provision of Catering Services for Cardinia Cultural Centre, withdrawn by Councillor Brett Owen. Councillor Owen.
Thank you, Mayor. I move the following. That Contract 18/33 be awarded to Cairns Management Group, trading as Cairns Hospitality Services, with the common seal of the council to be affixed to the contract documents, and the unsuccessful EOI submitters are advised they have not been selected.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Ross. Back to you, Councillor Owen.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Ross. I just wanted to briefly read from the report. It's actually a very good summary of what's happened, but this report provides consideration for the appointment of a contractor to undertake the catering services for the Cardinia Cultural Centre. The proposed services include the following: all aspects of food preparation and food and beverage service, including provision of trained and professional staff to deliver that service. Development and preparation of menus and menu pricing suitable for the clientele using the Cardinia Cultural Centre. Provisions of all utensils, plant and equipment, etc. necessary to deliver food and beverage service. Operation and management of the Cardinia Cultural Centre Cafe. Operation of other food and beverage outlets at Cardinia Cultural Centre as required, and setting of all rooms within the Cardinia Cultural Centre except the theatre as required for functions. So that was the brief, the EOI brief. Tenders, we received 3 expressions of interest from various companies. Tenders were evaluated against the non-weighted criteria of food safety, liquor licence compliance with specification, brief, compliance with commercial requirements, financial viability, risk and insurance, and operational health and safety. Tenders were also evaluated again weighted criterion, and this is really important, and definitely councillors express a strong view on these aspects. Menu, social responsibility, environmental responsibility, innovation, adherence to council policies and plans, previous cafe catering experiences and past performance, proposed fit-out, capability, customer service, commercial offer, qualifications and experience of staff, projections for 5 years, capital expenditure and timing, customer service experience, complaints and feedback, and the length of cafe close time to start up, fit up. So there was an extensive evaluation through written applications, first round interviews, referee checks and second round interviews, and I thank the people and officers that were on that panel. There was also a independent probity auditor, and Dalton and Associates were involved in all aspects of the process. So following this extensive process, it was determined that Cairns Management Group was the strongest submission and is therefore recommended that they awarded the contract. So I support this officer's recommendation. As I said before, councillors definitely wanted to see the expression of interest tenderers express, their commitment to some key areas. And I want to talk about the social responsibility. We think that the role of this provider, has a massive role in social responsibility, and it's fair to say Cairns Catering Services has a extensive track record on this, long over many, many years, and that is clearly evident, and that was demonstrated through this process. Also a commitment, to be innovative and continue to provide the food on offer. We know that the cultural centre is undergoing an extensive redevelopment, and we want to have the right person or right company in there, delivering quality food and service, and we believe Cairns will do this. I note that we've got members of the Cairn family here tonight, and I know it's a family business, and they all share that social responsibility. So I fully support this, and I hope my colleagues do as well.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. Councillor Ross, seconder to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just echoing Councillor Owen's evaluation on this, I must say the criteria is really important when it comes down to these tendering things. I particularly look at things like social responsibility, environmental responsibility, innovation, customer service. All of these areas, I know that our council have at times gone and had a chat to Adam, who's the owner of the business, and he listens to what they've got to say. And in relation to the future of the facility too, he's willing to come on the journey and do things a little bit different in the future to innovate and bring a real vibrance to the food menus down there at the Cardinia Cultural Centre. I must say some of the things that I've really noticed on my time on council, whether it be the volunteers dinner, whether it's the business breakfasts, whether it's the citizenships, also too, Adam Khan and his group will often put in, if people are in hardship, if they've got a brain tumour or cancer or someone has a back injury where they break their neck. Someone locally did that, Casey Cherry, and they put in to help with the solution. They give a discount on what they do to provide food, and they make a way to produce some money and the avenues so that these people can be helped. And he does that through goodwill. He doesn't do it because he has to. The contract doesn't say you have to do that. And I know that whenever we've got an important event down there, Adam Khan will be there, front and centre. He will stand there. He doesn't send other people. He will talk to you directly. And I just think that is a really great thing that we've got in our community. I must say I've often had chats with Adam in relation to the tough times when the GFC hit and then people weren't spending much money. He didn't pike out and walk away. He said, no, I believe in the community. I'm going to hang in there. And he's hung through the tough times, and hopefully the things will be going well for him because he deserves to get some fruit back in the long run. But I know he really adds to our community. Our community would be much poorer without him and his organisation, and I look forward to a vibrant future, and the fact that they got the contract back through the tender process and were outstanding, I think just bodes well to their organisation. So I hope my fellow councillors will support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Any other speakers on this item? Before I go back to the mover, I'd just like to say a word or two. Yes, I know Adam and his family out in Victoria are well known for their generosity, and I know he's a very humble man and wouldn't like me to say too much tonight, but I know he's got some followers in here across each side of the room here. So hopefully he gets the vote here tonight, because he does put back into the community. There's more than just a catering organisation. There's a real community strength from his family to us in Cardinia, and I want to thank him from the mayoral chair, if I may, for his generosity throughout the years I've known Adam. And I'll go back to you now, The mover. Thank you, Councillor Owen.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, councillors. I think it's been well summed up, so no further. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. Okay, councillors, it's time to vote in the usual manner. All those in favour? Carried. Item number 9, Officer District Park Master Plan. Also withdrawn by Councillor Brett Owen. Thank you, Councillor Owen.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that council endorse the Officer District Park Master Plan.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Wilmot. Back to you, Councillor Owen.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Wilmot. The Officer District Master Plan has been prepared in consultation with the officer community to develop a plan which provides a clear direction in relation to the development of this reserve. A bit of a history. This process has been going for a few years now. It involves probably the highest point in the growth part of Officer, and it's a very significant site. The preparation of this master plan involved 2 rounds of community and stakeholder consultation. The proposed master plan is a reflection of the feedback received through this process. And when you look at the plan, it's a very exciting reserve. And I know it got a lot of feedback, and I'll get to that shortly. But the key components of this master plan is the play space. The play space will focus on active, adventurous play opportunities for all ages. A proposed cafe, a dry creek bed and nature play, fitness zones and stairs. Adventure trails, and this is a really good one, is a wheeled adventure trail. Will be included along the northern slope of the reserve to provide opportunities for mountain bike riding, mountain boarding and bikes for all ages. A regional level skate facility. We are proposing a decent size skate facility. Wetlands and boardwalk, accessible paths, shared paths, off-lead dog area, toilets, lookout. As I said, it's the highest point in the growth area of Officer, and it's got some great sight lines. Lookout, access road from Princess Highway, car parking, picnic lawn area and open grassland areas. And I commend the council staff who ran this consultation. We had extensive coverage and promotion of this master plan. A drop-in session at Arena Shopping Centre was really great. I dropped in briefly and saw staff engaging with the community, and I think there was a funny story with a young boy who expressed his opinions. That was really great. 45 students from the St Clair's Primary School, and this primary school actually almost abuts this reserve, so some great use by them would be proposed, no doubt. 217 respondents to an online survey. That's huge. And I know certain groups definitely promoted that. I know the mountain boarding club really promoted that, which is a good thing. The feedback received from the community was overwhelmingly positive. In fact, when asked a specific question, what do you like least about the draft master plan in relation to the online survey, over 50% of respondents indicated that there wasn't anything they disliked about the plan. If only we could have a number of decisions with that sort of viewpoint or response. But a summary of the feedback received is attached to this report. So it's going to be a fantastic reserve. It's going to have Shire-wide community interest, no doubt about that. It's right on the edge of the border between Pakenham and Officer, just off the highway, just near Cardinia Road. I'm really pleased. A couple of years ago, there was a petition from the Mountain Boarders Club that has a strong base in Beaconsfield. They petitioned council wanting a mountain boarding facility or space in Cardinia Shire. Particularly, they wanted Beaconsfield, but after an assessment of Beaconsfield, land wasn't deemed appropriate. So through ongoing work of officers, we've been working with the Mountain Boarding Club and participants to develop that component to this master plan, and what a great result that is. Mountain boarders are probably generally older teenagers and people in their early 20s, and to have this different type of recreation as part of this park is a really good thing. So We are proposing that the delivery of this master plan will be almost $5 million. Council has a current live application to the Australian Government for the Building Better Regions Fund, and I believe that's quite a significant grant application. So if we get that, that will be a very good start to deliver those components in this reserve. So thank you to everyone who participated in this process. I've been speaking to the Office of Community Association, and Kevin Alexander briefed them a couple of months ago before it went out for public comment, and that they are very excited about this reserve, particularly around the sort of the directional signage of where certain parts of Cardinia is, towns, and even Melbourne, Western Port Bay, that sort of stuff. So they're really keen in relation to that. So I recommend councillors to support this master plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rowan. Councillor Wilmot to speak. Seconder.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm not sure that there's much more to add after Councillor Owens summed it all up very well. But this is a great project. It's a great development, right in the heart of development, and it has something on offer for just about everybody. It doesn't matter what age you are, whether you're a pet owner or somebody that's out to get fit. There's something nearly in this part for everybody, whether you've got little kids or older kids. You'll be able to go there and have something for all of them to enjoy and experience. And that's a great thing. Parks have certainly come a long way since I was a kid, or even since my kids were children, and going to these sorts of places. They're amazing now. And I too would like to just mention the great work done by the staff in developing these plans. We've had a number of them come across our desks over the last couple of months, and they do a great job of going out there and talking to people in shopping centres or at markets or at schools or wherever they find them, and it's really appreciated. Again, that's an area that we've drastically changed and improved over the last few years, and it's great. The communities really respond well to it, as is evident by the number of people who made submissions and took part of the survey on this development. So I'm looking forward to hopefully hearing some good news about the funding application that we've currently got in. Fingers crossed that one comes back with a nice result, and then we can start the development of this project and get the community benefits out of it, and it'll be a great success, I'm sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilmot. Any other speakers? Councillor Ross.
My fellow councillors have covered this really well. Just to highlight a couple of things. The topography of this area is extremely challenging, with the hills around the area being such that I've seen different developments come about and houses haven't been built on them for years and years if they get turned into residential housing. I must say the amazing thing about this is when people had a look at the plan, the amount of diversity and activities that can be done there, the adventurous nature of it. I dare to say my youngest daughter, who's a gymnast, she's going to have a look at the highly adventurous activities that would be risk averse, like the downhill stuff, which I fear that I might have to go and do with her. And then on the other end of things, you have a look. They're basically offering, casual walking. There's a whole lot of fitness areas. And even if someone just wants to drive up there and have a look out at the top and look across the Shire and buy themselves a coffee, it offers that as well. So I really think it offers something for everybody, particularly today where developments are built with smaller blocks of land and children have less areas out in their backyard to play, or in the front yard they have less areas to play as well. As long as we keep providing green space areas that they can go and enjoy with their families when they get time, I think we're really serving something. And as Councillor Owen said, the amount of people who gave a positive response to what they were seeing was absolutely overwhelming. I think it was one of the most supported things that we've put out there on council. So I think this looks amazing. I hope we do sincerely get the grant that will pay for a chunk of this to happen so ratepayers don't have to pay. Anyway, we'll wait to see what happens, and I hope my fellow councillors will support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Any other speakers? No? Before I go back to Councillor Brett Owen to sum up, I would like to say that it's great to see the mountain borders being accommodated. A place, so they've built it up an officer up there because the land is quite steep. That's what it's for. Beaconsfield didn't have enough steep land there. That'd be the problem. So it's going to be exciting to see that new club there being accommodated, because it's the sort of thing that would be hard to get someone else to accommodate an exclusive club like that, the Mountain Borders. So I'm looking forward to going up there one day and seeing them operating down the grass slopes down there. So it'll be really good. Back to you, Councillor Brett Owen, to sum up. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, councillors. I also are very pleased that we're able to find a home for the Mountain Borders. Also, the skate and BMX strategy identifies as a high priority to implement a new regional scale skate park within Officer, and this does so. This is going to be a massive skate park and a great location to hold events. So this is a great aspect to this reserve. So thank you, councillors, for your comments, and I look forward to this being developed over time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. Now, councillors, we have the time to vote. All those in favour? Carried. Item 10 is the Cardinia's Community Food Strategy 2018 to 26. Before I go to Councillor Schilling, to who's withdrawn this, and I'm glad you have, I'd just like to acknowledge the gallery to my left. The gallery has got the food movement members here this evening to see this item go through, because they were very involved, extremely involved in the strategy, what was involved behind this thing. So I really want to thank them and welcome them here tonight to see their fine work. Hopefully, I say hopefully, go through tonight from my fellow councillors if they see fit. I want to thank Pieter too for being here with them, supporting, because it's really great to see everybody here following through on a strategy that they've had so much involved with. So thank you for coming this evening. To you, Councillor Schilling, you're the mover. Can you move, please?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to move the recommendation that Council endorse the final Community Food Strategy and Action Plan 2018 to 2026.
Thank you, Councillor Schilling. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Ross. Back to you, Councillor Schilling.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you very much. I think it's very appropriate, you as Mayor acknowledging the people in the gallery who have put a lot of work into this. We've seen the development of this plan as a council now, probably for the last 18 months, and it was we've seen a draft, and I think to actually see it in its full form with all of its recommendations is quite an achievement, and it's something that as a community, given we all eat, I think we should all have a particular interest in this plan. So this actual community food strategy plan, as I mentioned in the recommendation, that it is from 2018 to 26, and it is the first of its kind, this plan for Cardinia. It does provides a point of integrated specific direction and action to align all of Council's existing and future work across the food system. It identifies the issues facing the municipality and sets up a plan to how we can work together internally and with the broader community, basically to ensure that future generations have access to affordable and nutritious food. The food system, and this bits directly from the report, comprises all processes involved in feeding a community: producing, processing, packaging, transporting, marketing, consuming, and disposing of food. We know that food is incredibly, it's central to the work of local government, with the recommendation that the food system impacts significantly across the areas of the council operations, including waste management, recycling, health and wellbeing, sustainability, land use planning, and economic development. Through the formation of this plan, there has been extensive community engagement over the past 2 years, and it has drawn on previous works which have been undertaken by staff of this council during the implementation of the Healthy Together Cardinia, and it has come together to form this very important strategy. This strategy has action plans which outline key actions that we as a council have to take, but not only us, but partner organisations and residents. So to make this plan come to fruition, it's important that as a community and organisations within this community also get together. We are quite unique here in the Shire. We grow a lot of produce, I think it's fair to say, which is distributed across Australia. And despite these very rich farming communities that we live amongst, and some of us around the room actually live in these specific farming communities, only 10 to 20 kilometres away on average lies our growth corridor, which has a mixture of financial disadvantage, families who only return back to our municipality to wind down and sleep after a busy day working in the city, and ultimately our residents in the growth corridor are largely, not everyone, but largely quite time poor. This poses challenges to providing a healthy food network to our community. We also know there's an overdensity of fast food options in our Shire. I could do a walking tour of our local fast food restaurants and not be gone all that long. We have apps like Uber Eats is one example, which has rapidly expanded in our Shire, and just at our fingertips. We have an abundance of packaged food items, and they're all located incredibly conveniently around our housing centres. So this food strategy aims to protect and utilise fertile land as a source of fresh food for current and future generations. So there's a few subheadings to this plan with key actions. I'll go through them quickly. That's to grow a vibrant local food economy which supports growers and enables people to access produced food, enhance food knowledge, skills and culture within schools, workplaces, clubs and the wider community, reduce and divert food waste from landfill and reuse water to grow food, and to build capacity across the community to lead, participate in and support food system work. Now, to implement this common agenda, we've partnered with more than 20 organisations, and I'll just name a few of them. They're all listed in the report. That's Align Leisure, Cardinia Food Network, Monash Health Community, the Southern Migrant and Refugee Centres, and the Pakenham Community Garden. That's just to name a few. As I mentioned, there's been a lot of community consultation, with the draft receiving more than 20 submissions. And this is a great outcome for the implementation of any plan, the more input that you can get. So there are 67 actions in this plan which have to be achieved before its conclusion. And Council are responsible for 18. And given we're at the Council meeting, I'll name just a few of those that we will be expected to fulfil. And that's looking at expanding the community garden with inclusions of community orchards in the development of the PB Ronald Master Plan. And that's an opportunity for me to once again plug the importance of this master plan coming to Council sooner than later, because there's a lot of important infrastructure, including our community garden there that is definitely needs to be expanded. And now it's in the food strategy. That's another advocacy tool to get that happening. Also updating our healthy food policy and looking at council facilities in terms of healthy eating options. I mean, when we go to sporting events that out of our council facilities, do we see healthy food options for people to choose from? That's one question. And looking at food access points around the Shire. We talk about being time poor and having farm gate access to healthy, fresh produce. But can people really access that when they're leaving the Shire and leaving when it's dark and getting back when it's dark? So looking at points where people can pick up food. And also we'll play a big advocacy role for healthy food systems throughout the Shire. That's a very basic summary of a very extensive plan. So I'll hand it over to my seconder and any other councillor that would like to make comment on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Schilling. Councillor Ross, seconder to speak.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I echo Councillor Schilling's, and I won't go over the things that he shared, but he's given a really good outline of the actual policy. I must say Council came to doing something in this space. I've had Council say, why do you do something about this? What's food got to do with Council? I must say our previous CEO, Gary McQuillan, felt that he had a real social responsibility to do good things in the community with the people who live here. We had a report that came back to Council that said the obesity around Pakenham and the Growth Corridor was one of the worst for young people in any Victorian council. Also too, we had fast food outlets that were a higher ratio per resident than most councils across Victoria as well. And you put those two things together, and a lot of people are very busy. They sit on freeways for a long time. They spend time on trains and the whole lot. So therefore, parents look for the quickest and easiest option to purchase food. Well, Gary not only set us about thinking about what we can do in this space, he went out and he got some people to get involved in this program to design a policy for council. And he said it's amazing that the amount of, and he had statistics around the amount of fruit and vegetables that our children weren't eating. And it's possibly because no one had ever presented it in such a way that they would find it tempting and nice to eat. So anyway, our different groups went out to the schools and sold to those people healthy options of eating food. In Cardinia Shire, we are an amazing place. We grow 80% of Australia's asparagus in this one place. We have got some extremely fertile areas. If you have a look at some of the food produce that we produce, whether it be through Summer Snow Orchards, who produce probably the best fruit juices with apples of anywhere in Australia. A lot of the high-end market buys the juice off them that goes into their products. And that came about because there was a huge hailstorm that nearly destroyed all of their crop one year, and they were going to have to throw it in the bin. So they went round, and I was actually helping out there at the time. They actually went and bought a juicing machine and said, rather than throw it in the ground, what if we juiced all this fruit, or the size of fruit that people wouldn't buy through the supermarkets, the big oversized fruit, the small fruit, the whole lot. So they went about on a 20-year campaign to actually turn it into, and they recycle food as well. They teach people that basically you can do something. And one of the best restaurants in all of Victoria, Oh My, who basically grows most of their own food, are part of the network too. They recycle food, they grow food. They're one of the only places in Victoria to get 2 hats in the Good Food Restaurant Guide as well. They're all in Cardinia Shire. It's an exciting place to be. And connecting this with people who know something about this food system. I went to a sustainability food conference in the city, and Gary McQuillan actually spoke about his pilgrimage in this space. When he first knew about this, he got rid of all the cakes and biscuits at council. He said we're going to have fresh fruit, which was and no lollies. So basically, council went on a fruit pilgrimage where people get offered fruit at the workplace. A lot of people weren't real happy about that. I think they were addicted to the sugar at the time, but they soon got the taste of eating fresh fruit. So then you can actually go out and share with other people how wonderful it is. Anyway, I must say this has progressed on to the point where at the conference I went to, other councils came and said when Gary did his talk, and Gary wasn't probably the best narrator ever, but they came up to him afterwards and they said, this is amazing what you're doing, and we would really love it to come to our Shire. So I thought that in itself just showed how progressive and innovative we are in this space. And I think that if we keep pursuing these sort of things, young people will have better diets, they will eat more locally, and I think we can support our local food network around here as well. So anyway, I support this. I think the people who are involved do an amazing job, and just watch this space because they do go talk to the community and try and get involved as much as they can. So if you've got kids at school, they've probably come across our people already, and if they haven't, they will do very shortly. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ross, for your very colourful address. Is there any other speakers, any other council speakers? Councillor Carol Ryan, thanks.
Through you, Mayor, I support Councillor Schilling's motion. I'm going to go down a different road. Over the years working for Monash Health, had seen a lot of people that were under nutrition and their diet was very, very poor. And what was coming out of that was affordability, that they couldn't afford the right food. So if doctors recommend that, you should be on a certain nutritional diet, it's a matter of finances, and that's probably why people go to fast food, for that simple reason that it's quick and easy, but at the same time, it's not necessarily nutritious. And I think, Monash Health community being involved with it, Monash University and Department of Nutrition, I think it's fantastic that they're on board as well. I think we need to look at, again, we're in front showing other communities that we care about our community, we care about the people and their health and well-being, and all of us councillors and the workers, the officers, everyone that's involved with council cares about helping people that are having a hard time. And sometimes a hard time is simply finding the right food, the affordable food, that they can be healthy and fit and lead a very, very healthy life. And that's I'm glad to see that this is an aim from the community as well as council, and I'm all for this, and I will be totally supporting it. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. Any other speakers? I'm a bit confused now. I'm not sure who withdrew this. No, I know who did. Councillor Shilling, would you sum up, please?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you to all the other speakers to this item as well. There are some good strategies within this report, and one around food waste and the amount of food that we throw away as a community. Council have a scheme now where if you go and buy a compost bin, you can bring the receipt to the front desk and get $50 cash back. And we found out last week that also extends to Bokoshi composting as well, which is a home sort of under your sink type of compost bin, which is a different form of composting, but you can get yourself a complete setup for about $50. So for really no out-of-pocket expense, you can get a rebate through council and minimise the waste that your household does use. Also, looking at some great strategies around talking about affordability, and Councillor Ryan's completely right in saying that fast food options, as we know, are cheaper and far less nutritious. We have the community grocer now in Pakenham, which is a fantastic initiative down on a Thursday, down at Living and Learning in Pakenham, where people can have access to much cheaper and affordable produce, which is another great strategy. But look, I'm looking forward to seeing this plan come to life over the next few years, and even seeing our schools, kindergartens and the broader community getting involved in the conversation with food and how we do promote a healthy food network within our Shire. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Shilling. Councillors, can we vote in our usual manner? All those for? Carried. Item 11, Beaconsfield Parking Study. Also in the hands of Councillor Brett Owen. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Mayor. I move, as per the officer's recommendation, subject to the inclusion of the following additional matters. 3, council right to all residents in the affected area, all residents south of the Old Princess Highway, informing them of the results of the survey and council's intended actions. 4, council urgently seek a delegation audience with the Minister for Public Transport and local state government MPs, Bass and Narre Warren South electorates, to highlight the survey results, detail current pressures at the Beaconsfield Railway Station and the impacts on neighbouring residents, and to get a timeline of the expected construction of the additional car parking spaces at the railway station. And 5, that a further council report be presented to councillors by April 2019 detailing the results of the state government delegation with the expected timelines of the construction of the additional car parking spaces. This report will further consider the decision of whether or not to install, retain or remove time limit parking in Railway Avenue, Beaconsfield, and other impacted streets in the vicinity of the Beaconsfield Railway Station. I move so.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Jeff Springfield. Back to you, Councillor Owen.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Jeff Springfield, for seconding. Long history. Back in May 2018, Council received a petition in relation to installing a 4-hour parking restrictions in Railway Avenue, Beaconsfield. So the petition is attached in the report. So Council passed a motion at July 2018 Council meeting to undertake a parking study on the area around Beaconsfield Railway Station to further investigate the issue and provide recommendations. Just some background. Anyone who goes to Beaconsfield and checks out this location will know that this area is under immense pressure in relation to shortfalls of car parking for users of the railway station. It has had some serious impacts on neighbouring residents, and that's one of the reasons why we received this petition, particularly Railway Avenue. It's a unique street. It's a lot. It's not as wide as other Beaconsfield streets in this area, and it's evident when you go down this area, you can see the pressures that the street currently is experiencing. So council did undertake a survey, engaged a consultant, and this survey took place on the 21st of August between 6 a.m. and 7 p.m. and the results is in the report. And unfortunately, it didn't provide any new information because we already know that it's at capacity, but it's a really good evidentiary record of the issues that we'll use this document as key advocacy when we go to other governments, mainly the state government. But the report outlines the results, and it outlines the capacity. The heat map on page 540. It definitely shows that it is that capacity, and those heat maps are taken at 8 a.m. and 3 p.m. respectively, and we know that the actual car park, on the public transport website, it states that there's 341, but the actual survey demonstrated that that is not the case, and it's only 280. So there's a shortfall there, and that will definitely make the public transport Victoria know about this shortfall. But it shows that the street is at capacity. But in this report, there's a number of recommendations, and I won't go through each of them, but there's a key component of advocacy to the state government in increasing the amount of car parks at the railway station. We know that there was, through the recent election campaign, the Labor government committed to 150 new parking spaces. So we will go to the government, and part of my amended resolution is to make a real determination to seek a delegation to the Minister of Public Transport and also the local government MPs. And when you look at the boundary of these two electorates, Bass and Narre Warren South, it's within probably a K of their electorates, believe it or not. So we need to make those two MPs aware of this issue, and that's what I hope council will be doing, and I'm more than happy to be part of that delegation. There is also improvements around bicycles. It's very poor at the moment. If you want to ride your bicycle, there's no storage facility there. I'm aware that bicycles have been stolen from that platform because they are inadequate, and there is no encouragement for people to get on a bike and secure their bike on the railway station platform. So that's also key. I'm aware that this is a real issue for residents, and that's why I've amended the officer's recommendation, because I think once we know the clear timelines for these proposed increased car parking, then I think we're better informed about what we need to do in the meantime. To be honest, today I received 2 emails, and this is the difficulty of making these decisions about introducing timed car parking. I get one email from a resident in Railway Ave that's disappointed with the officer's report, and she told me exactly what she thought of it. Then probably 2 hours later, I receive an email from a Wood Street resident that wants car parking removed, restrictions removed, because he gets tickets for parking outside his own house, and council's not is not really enforcing. So there's that conflict. So you've got one person wants timelines removed, and other people want timelines installed. So it's a very conflicting sort of argument, and I just want to get a better understanding about the government's planned upgrade, and then come back and determine where we go from there as well, because it is adversely impacting people's lives, the way they live. But we've got an overall issue, and we need to highlight this to the state government. We know that area is under pressure. We know there's land abutting the current car park that is VicTrack owned. It is very suitable. We think it can probably hold up to 300 spaces, I believe, if it's fully developed. So let's continue those conversations. If they are only going to build 150, let's allow the other land to be gravelled and used for car parking as well, which hopefully will reduce the impact on neighbouring streets. So councillors, I ask for your support as we note this survey and a number of actions that will follow this report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. Councillor Springfield, seconded to speak.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to Councillor Owen. Not much more to add that Brett hasn't pointed out for us all, but this is an issue across many of our train stations. You know, I think you'd find a very similar thing. You know, Pakenham right now as well, along most of these train stations, is the parking issues. The township of Beaconsfield doesn't have a massive amount of parking elsewhere for all the shops and all the residents, let alone the metro trains not providing adequate car parking for the commuters. And they have the land right there, so it's just about us knocking on the door and having them release that and put it to good use as soon as possible. So I'd like to congratulate the efforts that Councillor Owen and others in this chamber have put towards finding a solution for the residents of Beaconsfield and the other train commuters, because I'm sure that there is many daily commuters out there that have to park a long way away in the middle of winter through the rain and the hail and maybe not quite the snow, but close enough just to use it. So yeah, so let's hopefully we get this infrastructure looked at very soon and get a move on with that. So I'd like to thank the officers for putting all this work together as well, and now let's just get the ball rolling, for the next for the state government. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Springfield. Any other speakers on this item? Before I go back to Councillor Owen, yes, it is a problem. If we got rid of all the cars in our community, we'd get rid of half our problems, because that is part of where the problems are. But it just goes to prove, Councillor Owens, you can't please everybody all the time when you've got one for one and one for that. Every item, a lot of items we have come up before us on the council chamber here, divides the community, you'll find, most of the time. So it is a difficult thing. We get in a position, but you are the right person for those difficult calls, so Councillor Owen, and I want to thank you for that. I'll call you to sum up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Springfield, for your comments. I also want to thank the officers. I know I've been hassling you on this issue, Mr. Mike Ellis and your staff, but I'm really keen to get some positive results, some really good outcomes. Because as I said before, this car park at the railway station is full by 7 a.m. If you're not in there by 7 a.m, you're relying on the residential street network, which we believe 269 spaces or people were using the street for their parking, and that's unacceptable, and I look forward to working with the staff, going to government to highlight the issues in Beaconsfield. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. Councillors, will we vote the normal way? All those in favour? Carried. We move to item 13, the Coral Inn Reserve Community Pavilion State Loan. Before I go to the withdrawer, Councillor Brown, I'd like to acknowledge and welcome the supporters and members that are in the gallery this evening from the Coral Inn region and the Coral Inn Reserve. And I'll thank them for their attendance here this evening. Thank you. To Councillor Brown, you've withdrawn this item. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that the Council approves the acceptance of the loan of the State Government Community Sport Infrastructure Scheme to only accept the part of the state loan to build the new change rooms, canteen and public toilets at Coral Inn.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Ryan. Back to you, Councillor Brown. Thank you.
Yeah, look, thank you, Mayor, and I'd also like to acknowledge the Coral Inn people in the audience. I've been involved in recreation reserves and football clubs for nigh on 50 years now, and I understand the disappointments, I understand the joys, and I understand the battles that clubs have to obtain funding. However, just some background. In July 2018, the state government released a new program called the Community Sport Infrastructure Loan Scheme. Council saw this as an opportunity to secure funds at a low rate to build some much needed infrastructure, which apart from the Coral Inn Pavilion of $1 million approved in 2018-19 was not budgeted for. Application closed 31st of August 2018. Former CEO Gary McQuillan advised Council 3 loans had been applied for. The Bunyip Community Auditorium Extension, the Coorab Bowls Clubhouse and the Coral Inn Reserve Community Pavilion, this application being successful. The loan amount was $226,700 at a low interest rate of 1.6%. The annual repayment will be $317,505.36. The total interest paid over the term of the loan is $536,880.06, making a total loan repayment of $762,580.06. The change to the scope is all about the proposed social space and the implications that would occur if we ignored the recreation reserve facilities standards. The costings of the facility were well above what was envisaged by Council. The social space proposed in the new building is well above what Council would normally fund for a social space. The space proposed, or part of the reason for the space, was to seat 200 people banquet style, which is far and above the Council Reserve's facility policy of social space of 90 square metres. The existing netball pavilion, constructed in 2015, already has a social space of 48 square metres. The user clubs have agreed to contribute $5,000 annually for the life of the loan, a total of $75,000 over 15 years. This, of course, will not be payable now if the proposal to introduce only part of this loan is taken up. We all need to be reminded that this is a loan, it's not a grant, it becomes council money. Former CEO Gary McQuillan was adamant, always stipulated the policy that we would only fund 90 square metres to everybody, every club I know of that asked. If you wanted more space, then clubs needed to source funding elsewhere. It is your responsibility. He never wavered on that. Plenty of examples of this in recent times. The new social rooms at Caldermead that the Langlang clubs will use. The club sourced $1.5 million grant from the federal government to increase the size of their space. I acknowledge that the community facilities at Coral Inn are well used by a number of organisations, but they cope and meet the need at the present, I believe. Part of the project was that the existing football club, social club, be moved to accommodate the show jumping club. This, in my opinion, would be doubling up on social space. It is interesting to compare other clubs when you're comparing this proposal. Other clubs, for example, at Cooey-Rupp, there is a long-established equestrian club, netball, football, cricket and junior clubs, as well as school groups, with a much larger community participation, with current facilities at Cooey-Rupp much on a par with Coral Inn. Same space. All of these have access to the social rooms at the reserves, which are similar to Coral Inn, but they make do. They would love bigger facilities, but who wouldn't? Coral Inn, of course, has asked for the larger facilities, but as I keep coming back to, 90 square metres is the standard. For larger seating events, the Cooey-Rupp community clubs use the Cooey-Rupp Community Centre, which seats 200 to 240 people banquet style. The Langlang football and cricket clubs, and also Catania clubs have also used this facility, and it would be available to Coral Inn if they had a function that would require that much seating. Fairly close by, Langlang is 12 kilometres from Cooey, Catania 16 and Coral Inn 14. So they're fairly close by, and to supply a facility that would seat 200 banquet style when you have a near new facility so close by is really not justified. Good news is that the provision of new change rooms, including a new canteen and much needed new public toilets, will provide a massive boost to the football and the equestrian club. Social space will be addressed when the new standards are established and funding becomes available. The application was submitted by council on behalf of the clubs as time was running short. It was really going to be the responsibility of the clubs to put this application in, but council took it upon themselves to submit the application. When notification of the successful loan was received, significant work was done to try to fit it into the current budget. As I said before, currently we have $1 million budgeted. It was reasonable to assume that the loan would be another 1.5 for the pavilion, possibly the same amount for the social space, which would come to around about $3 million. I believe it was communicated to the clubs to gather commitments to the loan, such as the repayments that they would like to make, comments, etc., etc. My understanding is that the officer advised the clubs that the acceptance would have to be endorsed by council at this meeting. It is obviously from the past few days that there was some misunderstanding among the groups who celebrated the loan rather prematurely, I think. Council admit we could have done it better and we probably should have done it better.
Yeah, I'm on. Thanks. Thank you. Councillor Carol Ryan.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. I'm in support of what Councillor Brown has stated. He's in a position to have a better understanding than some of us other councillors. So I'm not going to keep it any longer than this. I think Councillor Brown has covered pretty much everything and what we've been informed about. So I'll leave it there, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. Any other speakers on this subject? Councillor Schilling.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Brown. Look, I'll be supporting you tonight, but look, I can recognise, like councillors, we've all been involved in this process as yourself, and we've all sort of gone on this journey, even if we may not necessarily have been at the club. We've seen all the correspondence which has come through. We've been briefed, and it is a hard situation. But the reason why we're supporting this is around that issue, around that policy of that social space, and what that means for future clubs in the future. And when it comes down to clubs needing upgrades, I know that Kirirup is in need of some additional facilities, and I can think of a pavilion or so in Central Ward as well. So as we do have clubs coming to us, and we're having to negotiate with council money to try and get good outcomes for clubs across the Shire, we do have to go back to that policy. And I would like to be in a different situation, I guess, where there was a little bit more of a flexibility, but we know how hard the dollar is to come by. We've all been in our pre-budget workshops over the past few weeks, and we're all advocating very hard for our projects across the Shire. But look, for that reason of that policy, and I'm not saying that policy shouldn't be reviewed. I think that's important that it is reviewed. But I will be supporting Councillor Brown tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Schilling. Councillor Bredon.
Thank you, Mayor. I support the previous councillor's comments. definitely it is time that we reviewed the policy at the September council meeting. A notice of motion was put, and it was agreed that council commence the review of the policy that dictates only 90 square metres of social space will council fund. And we know that's unrealistic in this day and ages. We know that clubs are community spaces. They have wider use, not just for the footy club or the cricket club. It has a wider community benefit, and that needs to be considered, when we review the policy. And also, what other money comes to the table as well. If a club generates 200 grand through other grants or 200 grand of their own money to go towards a community social space, that should be considered by council in relation to the overall community benefits, and to have a hard and fast rule, which the previous CEO was definitely demonstrated to me when I spoke about other worthwhile projects. So it definitely is over time that we review this policy. Today I received a phone call about this matter about Cardinia and why is that different to other groups. So I thank clubs. I know that they're passionate about their spaces, but council has to get this policy right, make sure that these facilities are fair, and that we have a clear guideline of how much council funds for these projects. So I look forward to that review, and I understand that will probably come to councillors in the coming months, so I look forward to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. Any other speakers? Before I go back to Councillor Brown, I might like to say a thing as well, if I may. It's an unfortunate situation, this. Let's face it, it's an emotional one as well. I was actually enlightened by the email I received today from the Cardinia Show Chafing Club, who said all they wanted really was more showers and better toilets. And I think the first conception that we're talking about here will achieve that, and I can understand that. So I respect that. As far as when the new change rooms and the toilet block with the canteen and the public toilet comes to play, those sort of things will be covered. Yes, there is a bit of a flaw. There is a bit of misleading information, and I really we all understand this situation in this room. I think how maybe it was handled not in the best manner, but we can't change history. History's been done. I want to thank you, Councillor Brown, for your address tonight as well. I can't, being a fellow councillor, ward councillor in Port Ward, I can't assist in this of have to be impartial as I can. But I want to thank you for your address, and I also want to thank again for the gallery here this evening for your patience, because it's been a long night, and you're sitting back here waiting for this item, which is at the end of the night. So I want to thank you for listening in and your patience. Back to you, Councillor Brown.
Thank you to everybody who supported the motion. It's not something that we take joy in doing. It's something that we have to do. It's disappointing for me to have to break the news to clubs regarding missing out on something or not being able to achieve, because, as I said before, I've been in their situation many times. But all's not lost. As Mayor Morse said, the riding club will have the new showers, you'll have the new change rooms, new public toilets, which are much needed at Cardinia, and of course a new canteen. That canteen served the club very well, so a new facility there will be much appreciated. So I have nothing further to add, Mayor, other than to seek councillors' support in accepting this motion. Thank you.
Thank you again, Councillor Brown. Councillors, it's time to vote on this item, item 13. All those in favour? Carried. Item 14, Council Road Management Plan, withdrawn by Councillor Jeff Springfield. Councillor Springfield.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that Council revoke the road management plan which it made on the 17th of August 2009 and make a new road management plan, which is attached to the papers, publish final notices in the Government Gazette and Daily Newspaper as required by the Road Management Act 2004.
Thank you, Councillor Springfield. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Shilling. Back to you, Councillor Springfield.
Thank you, Matt. So, the road management plan. The purpose of the road management plan is to provide the following to key stakeholders. Detail the management systems for the road management functions under the control of Cardinia Shire Council. Set the relevant standards in relation to the discharge of duties in the performance of those road management functions. Base the standards on policy and operational objectives within the resources available, and ensure the provision of a reasonably safe and efficient road network for use by road users and the community. The road management plan, it's a legislative paper that we have to have in place, which outlines the minimum standards which we are required to implement in maintaining our road network, which is substantial. We have 862 kilometres of unsealed roads, another 690 kilometres of sealed roads. And we all know very well that's a lot of work involved in that space. It is a huge aspiration of everyone in this council to deliver that service as best as possible. And this new plan is going to be a step towards that direction. It's been 2009 was the last adopted plan, and I think in the previous 9 years we've learned a few things which have gone into this new plan of how we can, better focus on achieving the best outcomes possible for our community, which is the purpose of why we're all here, is to serve the community, and to deliver on those types of things. So the main difference we have here is we used to have a reactive maintenance schedule, and we're moving to a proactive, cyclic sort of schedule here. So we're going to be on the front foot rather than dealing with the problems once they arise, and reports have been made and complaints come through. We're gonna be on the front foot, and we're going to recognise the issues before they come to fruition and address them at that point in time. Rather than dealing with the symptoms, we're going to address the causes, and look at addressing these causes, and improving our delivery of this major service, which is one of the biggest things that we do as a council is our road maintenance service. I'll leave it there for the moment and pass it back to you, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Springfield. Well spoken. Councillor Shilling, the seconder to speak.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Springfield. This is a very important document that we're discussing tonight, and I'd like to acknowledge your continued advocacy for our unsealed, in particular, unsealed road network. Being a councillor in one of our more rural areas in the Shire, I understand that you would 100%, a large portion of your work does probably go on our unsealed road network. Look, I think this new road management plan is a great way forward for our council. Roads, as we know from our community satisfaction surveys, continuously come up as one of the biggest issues for our local residents. And I think it's by implementing a new plan, it really sets a direction for the future with our roads to try and alleviate some of those resident concerns. And whilst, as Councillor Springfield says correctly, we can't completely fix the issue, we can go a long way to making our residents' lives who live on these unsealed networks better. And my understanding of this plan, and it's quite a comprehensive one as well, we're faced with a shrinking dollar. We know that. We know we've got rate capping. We know we've got to make our dollar stretch further. But a lot around this plan is about working smarter and not necessarily and looking at creating efficiencies, particularly at our distribution points and at that depot level, to maintain our graders out on the roads, and also looking at some of the science and innovation around roads. And I know that probably doesn't necessarily sound like the two and two go together, but of course it does. There are roads all around the world, and looking at the best practice and the way that we can solve these issues and bring them back to Cardinia is a great way to go about it. So I'll be supporting Councillor Springfield tonight in adopting this plan, because I do believe that it goes a long way to providing a long-term solution to our road issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Schilling. Any other speakers for or against? Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to sum up the size of the issue that we have in Cardinia Shire in relation to roads, we've got 862 kilometres approximately of unsealed roads, which is from Melbourne to Sydney. We've also got 690 kilometres of sealed roads. We've got 226 vehicle and pedestrian bridges. We've got 700 kilometres of significant roadside vegetations, not to mention the 3,750 kilometres of drains. We've got 28,000 drainage pits and 606 kilometres of pathways. So when you have a look at that, it is a huge issue for our Shire. It does say in one of our reports that we have the most unsealed roads in all of the interface councils, although I think that might be an understatement. I think Yarra Ranges would probably outdo us on the amount of unsealed roads. But I stand corrected? No. Anyway, that goes to show, I must say, on my 11 years on council, this has been the absolute bugbear of Port Ward councillors and Rangers Ward councillors. All you need is you could grade everything today, and tomorrow you could get a whole lot of rain and the water rushes across the road, and all of a sudden it all turns to rubbish again. So it's a constant challenge. If I could ask a question through the chair, please, to the General Manager of Assets and Services, Mr. Mike Ellis. Mr. Ellis, how much money approximately would council spend a year on roads and road maintenance? Just a ballpark.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. On road rehabilitation, which is basically your major repairs, it's in the order of about $5 million. And just on the general grading and what we call routine maintenance, it's probably up around $8.5 million.
So there it goes. We have roughly about $60 million we bring in rate money. And from what you've just shared there, we're up around the $13 million we spend on just road maintenance and rebuilding our unsealed roads, and also resealing the bits of bitumenised roads that we have. So there and all is the challenge. We have a lot of money that we spend. We're always looking for innovative ways to do things better. I know Councillor Springfield challenges the staff absolutely to try and find those ways that they can do things better. And we've explored so many different ways, but I think we are getting better at it. We're trying different things, and I just want to endorse this new plan that has had a lot of time and effort thought into it, that how we can do things better. So anyway, I hope my fellow councillors support this, and I'll wait for the next few years to see. Hopefully there'll be less dire results from the weather patterns that we have, and the roads will hold up a little bit better for those residents who do live on those unsealed roads. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Any other speakers on this subject? Councillor Brett Owen.
Just briefly, I thank other councillors for speaking. This afternoon, councillors were briefed in relation to what we're doing, innovation in relation to improving our unsealed road network, and we were very heavily briefed, and I'm excited about what is proposed, improvements. So I look forward to sharing those ideas and new processes, that proactive approach with residents in the coming months. This is a priority of council, no doubt. With the CEO arriving, we've definitely, as councillors, we've highlighted that this is a real issue that councillors want addressed in relation to improving our unsealed road network and processes. So the new CEO is fully aware of that in her role, and I look forward to those results coming to bear. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rowan. Any other speakers? Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Mayor. Just quickly, as stated before, Port Ward, most of the phone calls and complaints I get, and I'm sure you do too, is the condition of the roads. And every time we ring the works people up to come and fix that road, we are aware that it disrupts their whole program. So hopefully this new scheme will put an end to that type of activity. Thank you, Mayor.
Well said, Councillor Brown. Any other speakers? Before I go to Councillor Springfield, yes, Councillor Brown's right. Addressing those issues that we have are quite complicated, and so hopefully this is going to sort out a few of those. It's all to do with the reporting also. Is part of the problem with getting the report through and then getting the issue addressed. So we are really part of our own worst problem with interfering with the scheme. So hopefully this will address some of those issues. Back to you, Councillor Springfield, to sum up. Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to all the other councillors for speaking and supporting this. It is all well recognised, the issues, the insurmountable issues we face with our road network and the maintenance of such a thing, and sometimes it seems like an impossible task. So I would like to commend the efforts that the officers put into this and the other councillors put in towards, focusing on this problem. It's not through anyone's lack of effort for trying. It is just a big problem that we have, and to get this right, this is a major step in that direction. Now, this is no magic wand that's going to fix all the road network problems, the unsealed road network problems. There is no magic wand to fix that, but this is a serious step in the right direction towards tackling it from a different point of view and approaching it in a different way. And this is just one piece. As Councillor Owen spoke to, we've had a lengthy discussion this afternoon about some of the other intuitive tools that we're going to start implementing towards this, which aren't necessarily outlined in the road maintenance plan, but there's a whole sway of activities that we're looking at focusing on in the future to make this better and better. So I'd also lastly just like to thank our new CEO, Carol Jeffs, too, who has come on board and has recognised this is a priority for our Shire and for our residents, and is very supportive of council in finding the best solution for this in the future. So I thank everyone for their efforts towards this, and as a team, this is what we're going to leave behind in the next 2 years. We've got 2 years left sitting at this table. We're going to leave this place better than we found it in that time, and I thank everyone for their involvement in that. Over to you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Springfield. I endorse all of that. Well done. Okay, so Council will vote in the usual manner. Everyone in favour? Carried. This is our last meeting for the for the year. We're really on fire tonight, aren't we? Oh, it's the fire brigade. We're out there. It's a joke in there somewhere. Yes, I'm a bit nervous about that. That was a joke. Sorry. Yep. I think we're okay. Boom, boom. Sorry, councillors, and sorry, gallery. It was my little bit of indulgence, I would hate to say. It's a bit flat. Well, that concludes the discussions on items withdrawn by our councillors this evening. Can I have a motion, please, to adopt the recommendations for the balance of the items listed? Can I have a mover? Councillor Ryan. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Brown. All those in favour? Carried. Reports of minutes of committees. I note that several reports from various committees have been tabled in addition to the minutes of recent council briefing sessions, and these are available if any councillor wishes to view them. Councillor reports. Councillors, any matters to report? No matters. Oh, Councillor Owen.
Thank you, Mayor. Just briefly, on the 22nd of November, a number of councillors joined our environmental team to thank our volunteers of numerous environmental groups across our Shire. So it was great to acknowledge their great work. On the 23rd of November, I attended the 60th birthday of the Warringah Country Women's Association branch, which is at Upper Beaconsfield, and 60 years going. Some of their members have got 60 years of membership. Amazing. They do so much for our community. in supporting our community and raising very needy funds. At the end of November, I attended the Kids Fun Run with Thomas. That event is run by the Emerald Rotary, chaired by John Henderson, and this year they raised, I think, I don't know the end result, but it was estimated about $30,000 to $40,000 towards the Monash Children's Hospital Cancer Centre, and Cardinia Shire Council played a role in selecting the charity for this. It was an event run by our children's department, whereby school students were part of the selection process in selecting where the money would go. So I know Cape Beveridge was heavily involved in that, so that was really good. Last week a number of councillors attended the announcement of the Harold Bold Award winners. Two students, one from Officer Secondary College and one from Pakenham Secondary College, was given the award. So next year they will be going to Kokoda, doing the trail, and what an amazing award that is. And I note that there's members of the Bold family in the gallery. And I just wanted to finally talk about, unfortunately I forgot to mention this a couple of months ago, but in September I attended a officer art exhibition. It was an exhibition that celebrated 40 years of Officer, the history of Officer. And as Officer grows and changes, it's really important to really celebrate the history. So Ira Turner is an Officer resident, but she created 40 portraits of photos that she's taken probably over the last 5 or 10 years before Officer became, started to change. So I did purchase a painting, and I'm happy to offer that to Cardinia if they want to display it. Ideally, I would like them to, but if there's room. But this photo is of Siding Avenue. So looking up from the highway, going down in this direction, down Siding Avenue, before Siding Avenue was constructed, before obviously our civic offices was constructed. So this was a fundraiser for the Turner family. They're heavily involved in an orphanage in Thailand, and I think they raised close to $5,000 as a result of the sales of these art pieces. But it was great. It was a great weekend. It was the grand final weekend, and it was great to see so many older officer people and also new officer people who came along to the exhibition to understand the history of Officer. So I just want to acknowledge that, and if council wishes to display that, I'm happy to gift it. Thank you. That'd be great. Thank you. That's all. Thank you.
Any other speakers? Any other matters to report? Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, through you, the Mayor. I just wanted to talk about something that I'm really passionate about, that we promoted this year very passionately. We've been doing it within council, but I think this year we made it a lot more larger, and for the community to be more aware of Mental Health Week. Now, Mental Health Week is a really importance. It's about people with mental illness. That's why it was developed. But it's also coming within our livable plan and having an understanding, again, of disabilities and what services we can help with and partnership with. And I'm just so proud of the team that I've been working with within the Shire that is so passionate about the same thoughts as well, and getting it out there, because it really is an important issue, because other councils have been running their programs for quite a few years now, and we're going to top it by making it enormous, that people are feeling very comfortable within our community and knowing that we are wanting to put out services with partnerships within our community coming under the livable plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. Any other councillors would like to mention reports? I'll just mention one. I've been to a fair few. It's been a busy couple of weeks, the last couple of weeks. But there was one we went to, the the CEO and I, Carol Jeffs and I, went to Canberra to go up there to spearhead an idea about the Southeast Metro Group, about a region idea. So there are 7 councillors from the region of here to meet the senators, to meet the ministers up there, to put our case forward of how good this area is and what we've got planned for the future, and we need their support to move those things along. In competition to the Geelong area, so it's the other side of the bay. So we just, I thought it was well received. We were very well received by the senators and the ministers there. We were led by Simon Crean, actually. He did a fantastic job, I thought, with taking us around from meetings. So it was a busy couple of 2 days, wasn't it, Carol? And it was a busy, but I think we achieved the results we wanted to achieve. We got our point across and got our region on the map a bit. I think it was asparagus that got us over the line, but that's nothing to do with Asparagus King, is it? Self-named. But so it was a bit like that. So it was a really great thing to meet the other CEOs and the mayors went all together to promote this area, and I think we've got a pretty good hearing. So we'll see what happens in the future for that. Okay, no other speakers? Okay. We'll move on to presentations of petitions. We got any petitions to be presented to you, Mr. Evans? No petitions. Notice of motions. Councillor Brett Owen, I believe you have 2 notices of motions. First notice of motion, 1042. Councillor Brett Owen to move.
Thank you, Mayor. I move the following: that Council, through the Mayor, write to the Minister of Public Transport, the Honourable Melissa Horne, Metro Trains Melbourne and Public Transport Victoria, requesting that the replacement bus service for passengers previously using the Officer Railway Station be immediately rerouted to pick up passengers at the Officer Railway Station rather than on the Princess Highway, which is over 600 metres from the station. The current service is unacceptable, with local residents and public transport users raising serious concerns regarding safety and car parking issues, as well as the inconvenience of the Princess Highway pick-up drop-off location.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. Could I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Jeff Springfield. Back to you, Councillor Owen, to speak.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Springfield, for seconding. This issue was highlighted at a recent Officer and District Association meeting. At the moment, the Pakenham line is undergoing serious upgrade, and for many weeks during December, there is a replacement bus service. And at the moment, if you are going to utilise this service, you have to use or go onto the bus stop from the Princess Highway. So when you look at the PTV website, it encourages you to park at the railway station, walk to Station Street, turn right, walk approximately 600 metres along the left-hand side of Station Street to the Princess Highway. At the intersection, cross Princess Highway, turn left and proceed approximately 70 metres. Very similar sort of description if you're going the other way, but it's really unacceptable. When it's a planned replacement service, you can, try and arrange other alternatives. Try to get a car park at another railway station, or you could, risk parking in an area on the highway, which is not appropriate because it impacts businesses, etc. And it's unsafe. Or you do that walk from the railway station. When it's not a organised or publicised bus replacement service, such as the train's broken down, this replacement service still drops you off at the highway, which means you've got that long walk back to the railway station car park. Also, particularly at night, it's dark, it's unsafe. So now that Siding Avenue actually goes through, and there's a possible means of getting direct access towards the railway station, having a service that services the railway station car park is possible. I know this replacement service has had this sort of location for probably many years, but it's now appropriate that we ask the government to look at this issue and hopefully come up with a more acceptable replacement bus service that services the Officer Railway Station. It's probably fair to say I don't think many people use the bus replacement service because of, this may be one of the reasons, because it's not appropriate, it's unsafe. So I'm asking councillors to support me in advocating for these improvements. Thank you.
Yeah, Councillor Springfield, just second it. Can you just want to speak?
Thank you, Mayor. Look, I support this motion wholeheartedly. It's very easy and simple, bit of a no-brainer type of thing, really, isn't it? Let's just get this request in there and have them look at it. The likely scenario is that someone's written this out from their desk many miles away, never has even thought about coming to the officer train station or considering what would be a better route for the community and for the users. So I think this is an easy thing to support. So thank you, Councillor Owen. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Springfield. Any other speakers on this subject? Before I go to Councillor Owen, I did actually went and had a look at this. I watched the people arrive. There wasn't a lot of people that went on this all the same, but thank you for enlightening it and bringing it up because I didn't realise that. And I did speak to the member for Narragain today, Gary Blackwood, about this, what we can do and how we can go about this. So give me a few numbers actually to ring and sort through. So I'll maybe just do it by phone and see if I can twitch some magic and make it happen. Because when you become mayor, they give you a magic wand and you can just do anything. So it's really, really fantastic. Yes, Councillor Brown.
Can I say something, please, Mayor? I'm experienced in this regard, having put in emergency service and all the rest of it, and replacement buses for trains, and most of the routes are set. And I suspect this particular one was set when Siding Avenue was not completed, and nobody has revisited the situation. And some of the things to take into consideration is the bus turning circle and all of those types of things. So that's what you've got to be looking at when you ask for these changes, because you can't manoeuvre those buses in tight spots. Just thought I'd put it in. Thank you.
Not just put it in. Thank you for your valuable input. I value your input in that circumstance. I nearly feel like unloading the problem to you, Councillor Brown. But the notice of motion. No, I'll look after it for you, Councillor Owen. I'll go back to you to sum up and finish off.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, councillors. Definitely, it's time. The road infrastructure is there to make these improvements. So let's see how we go with this. Thank you.
Okay, council, we get to vote on this. All those in favour? Carried. Second motion from Councillor Owen. Notice of motion 1043. Councillor Brett Owen to move.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that council, through the Mayor, write to the Minister for Planning, the Honourable Richard. Well, he's the member for Richmond, but the Honourable Richard Wynne, seeking urgent assistance to provide protection of the historic kiln and chimney located on the north side of the Princes Highway in Officer, which was formerly part of the Hicks Pipeworks. The kiln is now exposed to the weather and is in serious risk of further deterioration through neglect, and assistance from the Minister in protecting this valuable landmark is urgently sought.
Thank you, Councillor Owen. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Wilmot. Back to you, Councillor Owen.
Thank you, Mayor. Just briefly, thank you, Councillor Wilmot. I know a number of councillors are concerned about the condition of the kiln, and that became very evident in recent strong winds. And when you look at, we do look at social media, and this was definitely an issue raised on social media. There is genuine interest in this site, particularly obviously the kiln. Just to refer back to Council's heritage documents, when you look at the heritage overlay, and this is identified, the Officer kiln is protected under Council's heritage overlay. So the background is this industrial complex, with its collection of brick and iron structures on the north side of the highway, has historical significance for its associations with the origins and development of the important district brick, pipe and pottery industries. It has rarity not only within the region but within the state, as a relatively intact pottery with some early kiln remains, and that's basically what's left. And that's all we're asking to be protected, the kiln and the brickwork there. The complex relates directly with the Berwick Pottery Complex across the highway, but both sites adjoin the Officer Town Centre, which has dominantly more recent development. So what is significant? James Hicks Pottery, the kiln, the early clay sheds, is significant to the Cardinia Shire as one of the Shire's 2 early terracotta manufacturing complexes, which still retains notable early elements and highlights the development of extractive and secondary industries in the district. This pottery is an important district industrial site with remaining brick kilns and other structures associated with the brick making, pipe making and pottery production from the post-war First World War era. So this is highlighted in heritage documents. I think it's got strong support. I appreciate it's privately owned by a developer, and the developer has expressed it is investigating maybe a wine bar for this site. I know that they've got permission from Vic Roads to access the highway directly into the site. And council has approved the land use for such a wine bar / restaurant. So we encourage the developer to put in an application to preserve the kiln and make the most of it, through a restaurant or something similar. So this is sort of escalating council's intention here by writing to the minister. It has, as I said, detailed, it has state significance, and we would like that higher significance recognised, and we will seek that from the minister. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rowan. Councillor Wilmot, seconder. Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm more than happy to second this notice of motion brought to us by Councillor Owen, because I know how important this is to the community of Officer. The long-time residents of the area are very passionate about keeping this kiln, and rightly so. It's a very valuable piece of their history, and when their home is rapidly being changed into a growth corridor, naturally they would like to keep a little bit of their history. So it's frightening to drive past there and see how much it's damaged just in the last couple of weeks after the winds and the storms and so forth. So this has become a really big priority to get some sort of extra protection around this this site. So I'm more than happy to support this notice of motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilmot. Any other speakers? Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Australia is a very young country in relation to its historical basis, other than the Indigenous history, which goes back thousands of years. We've seen many of these historical facilities, basically through development, get left and left and left. And in the end, they collapse, or they get bulldozed, or something happens by chance, and it's gone forever. I think it needs to be noted, and it has been noted by Councillor Owen, on the basis of we have seen what's happening here, and if something isn't done quickly, it will fall over. And once it falls over, it's very unlikely that someone will go to the trouble of rebuilding it again. So I think it is a thing of significance. It's been there as long as and Councillor Owen, since he's been born, he would have seen that driving down that way, living in that area all his life. So it is something for local people. We have very little amount of history around our area, and it's one that is very visible. So I do support this, and I hope that we can get something put in place to preserve it and make those accountable if they choose to do nothing to preserve it as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Any other speakers? Before I go to Councillor Owen, I did, when this actually blew over in the storm, which was quite a shock, I drove past at the time, I did ask the CEO to contact the developer to see whether the developer would donate it to council and we would do the right thing by it. But to no avail, that didn't happen. But it was not a nice try. But because there's been some interesting proposals, if you follow Facebook, and I don't, I noticed that I got told about a few things that come up on Facebook about what we should do with it, as far as a toilet block and like a barbecue area and those type of things, maybe the answer. But It's a good notice of motion, and I want to thank you, Councillor Ryan, for bringing it up, but I'll go back to you to sum up. Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor, for your support. Councillor Wilmot is right in relation to this is an issue front and centre for the Officer Community Association and many officer residents. So I look forward to going through this process, raising this issue with the state government, but I extend that conversation to the owner, the developer, to work with council so we can work together to preserve this asset. And I think there is strong support for something to be done with this site from the developer's perspective to really celebrate the history of Officer. So let's work together. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. Councillors, can we vote in the normal manner? Those in favour? Carried. Community question time. And I want to thank the gallery for their patience tonight. It's been a long night tonight, so I want to thank the community that have put questions in this evening for hanging around, because it's important to us to hear what you have to say. We received a question from Mr. Hank Heermans. I recognise Hank in the gallery. I thank you, and I refer your question to the General Manager of Planning and Development to read and answer the question. Mr. Paxton, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The question reads, proposed 6-unit development at 20-storey Drive, Pakenham. The majority of the walls are cement sheet weatherboards. Nowhere in the plan does it show brick veneer construction. How can council say that such a construction fits with the surrounding area? In response to that, council's planning team assessed the planning application as in keeping with the surrounding area, as the application is assessed against the existing neighbourhood character and emerging character of built form, which includes rendered walls and lighter forms of construction, particularly at the upper levels. The emerging neighbourhood character includes a greater density and diversity of built form and is consistent with the Victorian planning scheme. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Paxton. We may need to give Hank that answer in writing, if we may. We can give Hank that answer in writing for you. If you don't want an answer in writing, okay. We've also received 3 questions from Mrs. Gloria O'Connor. I see Mrs. O'Connor and I recognise her in the gallery tonight. Thank you for coming. I'll refer to your first question to the Acting General Manager of Community Wellbeing, Kristen Jackson. Ms. Jackson, could you read and respond to Mrs. O'Connor's question, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Question number 1. At the council meeting 3rd of December, Councillor Ross spoke about problems with family violence and the need for refugee and social housing. Is that still working? Yep. Advising there had been a report stating that the highest level of these problems had been identified in Cardinia Shire. Has any action been taken to have some professional examination of this serious level of social dysfunction and the reasons why it has become so large in Cardinia Shire, instead of just walking about with a slogan? Should state government be requested to investigate this growing social problem and its reasons? The response. Together We Can is a movement run by the community for the community. It is the first Australian initiative of its kind addressing what Cardinia Shire was experiencing, the second highest level of family violence in the southern metropolitan area. Cardinia Shire Council is one of many member organisations committed to preventing family violence in the long term. More than a slogan, it calls every community member to take action to stop, prevent and end family violence by becoming involved in community solutions, having conversations with friends, neighbours, colleagues, seek support from our many dedicated professionals based in the Shire to consider the impact on children and to build more healthy, respectful relationships where residents and visitors live, learn, work and play. People who use violence in families are asked to seek help to change their behaviours, and all members of the community are asked to challenge their unconscious biases that lead to the condoning of violence against women, gender stereotyping of roles and the minimisation of sexist comments, known drivers of violence against women and proven by research. Given the increased awareness of family violence through the Together We Can initiative, more women and children are seeking assistance after experiencing sexual, physical, emotional, spiritual, social, technological and financial violence and abuse at home. As a result, we do have an increased need for affordable and social housing in the Shire and beyond. Together We Can was launched in 2016, soon after the release of the Victorian Royal Commission into Family Violence, where the 227 recommendations from the report have been accepted by and will continue under the re-elected Labor state government. As an intergenerational and complex social problem, Cardinia Shire Council is committed to the long-term vision that the community has to stop, prevent and end family violence in Cardinia Shire. And the state government, through their Free from Violence strategy and action plan, have funded Together We Can to raise awareness and build momentum towards amongst the community to prevent family violence from starting in the first instance. And I'm very pleased to say tonight that Cardinia Shire no longer has the second highest rate per 1,000 population in the southern region. In 2016-17, it recorded a 16% rate decrease in serious incidents reported to police and a further 18.8% for the last financial year. Family violence and violence against women is a local, statewide and national and international problem, and Council is working closely with all levels of government, universities and primary prevention specialists to address this insidious problem. And we thank you for your question, Gloria. And when we all work together to build a safer and more respectful community, we will meet our vision for a Shire where everyone thrives, especially our children. And I've also got a little something for you to take home tonight, which was a wraparound from the middle of this year from the Gazette, which detailed a lot of the work being done by the community in this space over the last 12 months or so. So I'd like to welcome you afterwards and we can have a chat about that, and I'll give you that. Excellent. Great. Thank you. Great, thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. What a great answer. As a ambassador for the Together We Can program myself, I stand here proudly with my fellow councillors who support this Together We Can program as well. And I think it's a great thing. Thank you for the answer. Gloria, I refer your next question to Andrew Paxton, General Manager of Planning and Development, to read and answer your question. Mr. Paxton, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Gloria, thank you for your question. The question reads, regarding the Mr. Yakubu display in the Pakenham Main Street, the nearby real estate agent business is still continuing to locate an advertising board very close to the figures on site. Is anything being done to require the advertising to be located further distant from the edge of the display? In response to that question, Gloria, thank you for raising this question with Council again. As previously advised, the A-frame has an existing permit and the business operator has been requested on several occasions to locate it further from the sculptures. When a new permit is applied for, this will be an opportunity for a condition to be placed on the permit to clarify an exact location further from the sculptures if it's deemed appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Paxton. Finally, Gloria, I refer your last question again to Acting General Manager of Community Wellbeing, Kristen Jackson. Ms. Jackson, can you read and respond to Ms. O'Connor's question, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This question is, what council funding, if any, is required for the Youth Council and who is responsible for organising any activities involved? So we have $6,000 that is used for fund activities of the Youth Council and $8,000 to fund the services of a youth officer to support the councillors and young people in the decision making and design of activities, the risk assessing and consideration of individual needs and the evaluation of the program. Thank you for your question.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. Thank you again for the great answer you give us. Now we move on to Councillor question time. Councillor Bredon, you have a question to ask the General Manager of Planning and Development. Councillor Bredon.
Thank you, Mayor. The Emerald Golf and Country Resort has been closed for over 18 months and there are genuine concerns in the Emerald community regarding the deterioration of this historical building. The clubhouse is an important part of the local heritage of Emerald It is located in what was once part of the historic Nobelius nursery. The nursery became the largest in the southern hemisphere, sending fruit and ornamental trees all over the world. The country club was built in 1929, mainly from local pink stone, which was quarried on the property. The interior has a beautiful timber ceiling, wooden panels around the walls, and features double-sided stonework fireplaces. So my two questions, please, is what is Council doing to nominate the property for a higher heritage significance and for state government support protection? And also, what discussions have Council had with the owners of the Emerald Golf and Country Resort regarding their plans for the property and the preservation of this heritage property?
Through you, Mr Mayor, and thank you very much for your question, Councillor Owen. In response to the first part of the question, Council's heritage team are looking into the process and the likelihood of success for nominating the country club for state significant heritage. So they're currently doing a review of what is the process and what's the likelihood of success with Heritage Victoria. And I'll continue to follow up with them on that. So we are trying to get onto that register. In relation to the second question, council officers have been in discussion with the owners of the country club for a period of time, and they've now engaged some reputable consultants who are working with them in developing a master plan for the future of that property. The future of that property has a real focus on the heritage assets, because that's the real element that they can succeed on that site, and looking at how we can protect those heritage assets going forward. At this time, Council has no proposal from the owner on the future of the site, as they're still undertaking their business case and assessing the options available to them under the current Victorian planning schemes. We have been told to expect it in a couple of weeks, and that was a couple of weeks ago, so I'm expecting it sometime soon. I was hoping before Christmas, but it is privately owned, and we are waiting for them to come back with a business case and what they're proposing to do on the site.
So, councillors, before closing tonight's meeting, I'd like to take this opportunity to advise that this will be the last meeting that Mike Ellis, our Mike Ellis, will be attending in his role as the General Manager, Assets and Services after an illustrious, and I must say, an illustrious career at Cardinia. We're going to miss you, Mike. There's a couple of other councillors that want to speak as well, but I just wanted to say Mike will be leaving, taking a well-deserved long service leave break, still returning to us later in 2019, but in a different role. I'd like to take this opportunity of thanking Mike for his invaluable service to council over the past 18 years. It's been a long time, Mike. 18 years, and I actually, your friendship to me has been fantastic over the last 8 years as well, Mike. I know this is not the final farewell for Mike, but as this is your last council meeting as GM, that you so richly deserved, I think it appropriate to take place on record, Mr. Evans, the council's deep appreciation of your service, and like that minuted in the minutes of tonight's meeting. I want to thank you, Mike, for your service over the years. Big round of applause for Mike Ellis. I believe that Councillor Ross would like to say a couple of words. Thank you, Councillor Ross.
I'll take tonight as a precedent and go no longer than any of the other speakers tonight. Furthermore, I just want to put it on the record while Mike's here. Mike, this might be the last time you actually have to attend one of these council meetings as a general manager and coming into work a couple of days a week or a few days a week. You'll probably come and do your work and you'll go home and you won't have to be asked lots of questions here by us. Look, over my time on council, I found you to be amazingly generous with your time, always got answers for us. You never make anyone feel silly no matter what you ask the question. You've always got the information as well. And I must say, and all the general managers I've come across in my time on council over 10 years, you would have to be the most respected general manager that I've met. Unbelievable in the area of advocacy. I know in my time just lately of being mayor during a state election time, it didn't matter what minister came along. you always knew exactly how to talk. And Jacinta Allen, Marlene Carews, Lily D'Ambrosio. We had the Minister for Sport. Yeah, John Aaron come along. You always knew, and a lot of the things that we got were directly because of your advocacy. I also attended things at Parliament House with all sides of politics, where you came along and gave your valued information in relation to that. You're the most highly respected person in that area. They always listen and they always take note. And I must say, in the time that you would have been in your position, you would have seen Steve Bracks, Ted Barlew, you would have seen Dennis Napthine, I know, through the race course down here, basically, and Daniel Andrews too, when he came down for the All Abilities space at Three Creeks down there. And you spoke to them in detail about all the things that council's doing. I must say, all the ministers and those premiers I know all highly respected you and valued your opinion on different things. I must say, whether you talk to any of the councillors, I know that and advocates on the outside, no matter who came to talk to you, they always walked away better for the experience. I know the staff who have worked with you often shared with me just how they loved working with you and around you, and they will miss you in that role. Also too, I just, on behalf of staff, council and councillors, hope you wish you the best for your future in relation to retirement. I know that we'll see you again, but sort of more in the distance a little bit with some, I'm sure, mentoring advice and help for the council. Also, you and your wife and your family. I know that last couple of years have been tough times with accidents and things and everything, and hopefully that you've built up yourself back, that you can play your golf, you can go and do whatever you want to do while you're still right to go and do it. So anyway, I just want to thank you very much. I consider you to be a friend and a colleague on council, and I just want to thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Anyone else want to speak? Councillor Carol Ryan. You know that Mike is a very humble man, so therefore you've got to be easy on him, right?
Through the mayor, I will go gentle. Just as I think coming in as a new, well, we're not allowed to say we're new, we're kind of central new, aren't we, councillors? I found Mike to be passionate, considerate, the gentle person, explained it so well, and you made yourself so available to when we needed you as new councillors. And I really appreciate what you've done, what you've taught me, and I assume the other councillors, newbie councillors. And I just hope that your journey now, your new journey, will be just as much fun. I will miss the sense of humour, the very dry sense of humour. I always looked forward to that. So I assume that probably if I bump into you in the corridor, I expect to hear some of that dry sense of humour. But I really much appreciate what you've done for the new councillors in making us feel so comfortable that we could understand what was going on. Thank you very much.
Well said. Well said. Councillor Bredholm.
Just briefly, thank you, Mike. Amazing career in local government. You've always been a great communicator, and that's something I really value from a general manager, is getting back to councillors. I know we're often a bit of a pain in the backside for you, particularly I, but you've always been a great communicator, and I know the residents value that as well. Obviously, and you should be very proud on the legacy, the many projects that you've been involved in, and obviously Deep Creek will be a major one of those. But you should be very proud of your involvement in many of those. So I wish you well.
Thank you, Councillor Rowan. Thank you. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to address it on a different slant. I was the chairman of the Township Committee at Cooyrup for quite a number of years, and I used to contact Mike a lot of times, smoke coming out the ears most of the time, and he'd give me a little grin, cock his head to one side, nod a couple of times, and I'd leave him and I'd say, "What was that all about?" But the work would get done. So, Mike, thanks very much for that. You're always approachable. You calm the most outrageous situations down with your smile and a nod of the head. And on behalf of the Coorup community, I'd like to thank you. Thank you.
Well said, Councillor Brown. Anyone else? Mike's leaving, but his sense of humour's not leaving, by the way, Councillor Ryan. So it'll still stay. That quick wit that Mike carries with him will be there forever, I'm sure, and I look forward to it, seeing you in 2019, Mike. Well, you're not going. You'll be at the council party, won't you? Yes, and I'll give you the right to respond, Mike.
It'll be very quick, Mr. Mayor, but look, thank you very much for all those kind words. I wasn't sure who you were talking about there for a while. Yeah, I'm almost up to 19 years as a GM, and I was thinking 19 years, that'd be about 200, or a bit over 200 council meetings that I've attended here, or just under 1,000 briefings. So have spent a lot of my life around the table here, I guess associating and dealing with yourselves and predecessor councils. I've always really enjoyed the respect and the support and the friendship that I've received from a lot of you. And I guess the reason that I've stayed here so long is that I am passionate about what I do, and I really believe that we've achieved a lot as a council, and you around the table should be very proud of that as well. And that sense of achievement is what's given me my job satisfaction and to stay on. So thank you all very much, and I look forward to dropping in from time to time in my new role and hopefully continuing to contribute to council and the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. That passion always shines through at the top. Also, may I just also take this opportunity, as this is our last meeting for 2018, to wish everybody in Cardinia Shire, from us as councillors and from our staff, from the CEO as well, a wonderful Christmas and a happy and a safe New Year. Because our first council meeting is in 2019, will be 19th of February, and I hope the regulars turn up on the 19th of February. The regular people and the regulars. So that's it for this year. But that concludes our tonight's proceedings, and I want to thank you all for your attendance, and I declare the meeting closed. Thank you.